everybody, welcome to another edition of Toddster's Magical Mystery Review. I'm your host Toddster, and today we're going to take a look at Let It Be by the Beatles. Yes, came out 8th of May 1970 on Apple Records, and yeah, this is the last album that they put out as a group. But even though it was recorded 15 months before, yet this is the only album reproduced by Phil Spector. So let's go back to January 1969. So by that time, Beatles just put out the White Album, and Paul was sort of like has a little itch about going back on the road, and he thought, spending too much time in the studio, and at that time, tensions were escalating from the White Album sessions, and he thought, let's go back being a little rock and roll band and go back on the road again. And so they gathered together at the Twickenham studios, and things didn't go well, and at that point, George even walked out, after having further arguments with Paul and John, and he walked out a few days, but then they relocated to the Apple Studios in Savile Row, and they thought, let's just make an album instead, and so George got back on the agenda, and even brought in Billy Preston, who was keyboardist, who they met while he was in Little Richard's band back in '62 in Hamburg. Yeah, the Apple sessions was pretty much more relaxing than the Twickenham sessions, but yet Paul still wanted to make a little sort of a surprise concert. So in the end, they decided to do it on the rooftop of the Apple Studios in Savile Row, the famous rooftop gig. Yeah. In the end, it was they had so much tape, like 100,000 hours of tape. And yet they had Glenn Johns mix it a couple times, but they weren't very happy with it. So rewind it, but to a year later, and John was working on the single "Instant Karma" with Phil Spector producing, and so somewhere down the line, he offered Phil to look through the tapes. And so he mixed it and put his wall of sound into it, and so I had mixed reactions from all the Beatles, and I'll tell you all about it as we go through the songs. And let's go through the songs. So we start off with Two of Us, sort of a two-part harmony from Paul and John. Yeah, great two-part harmonies, and yet Paul wrote this while he was on an outing with Linda somewhere in the English countryside, and Paul and John play acoustic guitars, and George plays the bass line on his Telecaster guitar, and it's a pretty good album, pretty good song. Yeah, it's one of my personal favorites, and it's lovely. And then we go into Dig a Pony from John, one of the songs recorded from that rooftop gig. Yeah, it's another one of sort of like Dylan-esque songs in a lyrical sense. Sort of nonsense phrases. Sort of put together, and even has a little dig at the Stones. You can imitate everyone. And then we go into Across the Universe. Now this dates back a year before the Let It Be sessions, and originally came out on the Wildlife charity album, and yet Phil Spector took it, slowed it down, put some strings on it, and it's a very good version. A bit of all the Spector overdubs. This is probably the best one. And John wrote this during the whole transcendental meditation Maharishi phase that they were going through. Then we go into I Me Mine from George. Sort of like an ego warrior type song. And yet this is one of the last songs that they recorded as a group. It's a very, very interesting song. It's the verses go from waltz time, 3/4, and then the chorus goes into a more shuffle mode, and yet Spector took it and extended it a bit, repeating the chorus and the second verse, and all that, and it's a good song. And then we go into Dig It, which is 50 seconds out of a 8-minute jam session, and it's okay. Nothing big, so skip that. Then we go into the title song, Let It Be. Now this version is different from the single version that came out a couple months before, and you could tell has a the hit is a bit more echoey, and loud horns, and a very different guitar solo from George. And Paul wrote this out of a dream, based on a dream that he had. His mom Mary visited him, during the sort of like comforting him, during the whole tensions with the other members, and and that was one of her frequent sayings to her, just let it be, and then we end the first side with Maggie May, the old Liverpool folk song which they used to play about during their early days, and it's okay. And then flip the record to side 2. I've Got a Feeling, another song from the rooftop gig, and sort of a bluesy, hard edge cousin to A Day in the Life, which Paul and John wrote 2 unfinished pieces and put it together, and it's a good rocker. And then we go, and then we're still in the rooftop gig with the next song, One After 909. This is one of the first songs that John and Paul wrote together. Is pretty awesome, and it has a little bit of Danny Boy at the end from John, And then we go into the controversial Long and Winding Road. Now, Paul wrote this thinking of what if Ray Charles did a song like this, and yet he wasn't impressed of how Phil Spector took it, put the strings and horns and the choir, sort of like ruined the whole song. And I sort of agree with it. The original version is pretty beautiful and sad, as it was, but then we go over to For You Blue. Now this is George's 12-bar love song to Patty, his wife. Yet John plays a lap steel guitar, and kind of a so-so, you know, a good so-so. And then we end the album with Get Back. Yeah, this is totally different from the single version which came out over a year ago. And but yeah, it's well, as for the song, it's, you know, it's one of my personal favorites, you know, definitely on my top 5 favorite Beatles songs, you know, mainly because, you know, it references Tucson, Arizona, which I am right now. Yeah, it's one of the very few songs that John plays lead guitar. And, you know, as I said, it differs from the single version, you know, has a little intro, you know, the sweet lot of art, she thought she was a cleaner. And then it ends with, you know, with the John saying, you know, I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the group and hope we pass the audition from the rooftop gig. Yeah, but, yeah, so that's the album. So, let's talk about the album cover. Well, nothing much to say about it. Probably my least favorite album cover. You know, it's not, you know, just four pictures of each Beatle taken by Ethan Russell. But yet when it actually came out in England, it came out as a box set. It came out with a booklet. Nothing much to say about the album sleeves, but so what do I think about this album? Well, it's an okay album, you know, not one of their best, you know, it could have been better, you know, if the original mix had come out. It could have been better, you know, despite Phil Spector's sprinkling, you know, sprink the fairy dust over the bastard, as the Trogs would say. But yeah, as far as ranking, 3 stars, 3 Beatles out of 5. But yeah, so there you have it. Let It Be by the Beatles, the last released album, and yes, certainly not the last Beatle album that I'm going to look into, because, you know, there's a few more ahead. But yeah, so my name is Toddster with another Toddster Magical Mystery Review, and so we'll see you again next time. So, toodaloo.